About 150 million years ago, a piece of mainland Africa broke away and formed Madagascar. The island has been isolated in the Indian Ocean ever since. From above, heavy soil erosion makes it appear as if the country is bleeding. The island has already lost 90% of its natural forest to deforestation, leaving most of the center of the country barren and eroded. The perimeter of the island holds the remaining patches of rainforests. Here live the unique species that have evolved to fill specific niches since the time creatures first came to the island about 60 million years ago. Madagascar is also known as one of the world's poorest nations. These people are at a critical crossroads. As their population grows, the resources are becoming more scarce. Because of habitat loss, many rare species of plants and animals have already gone extinct. Scientists warn us that we are facing the sixth great extinction of species. The first 5 are thought to be caused by natural occurrences, the last one being 65 million years ago with the extinction of dinosaurs. This time around, it's man that is driving the extinction, through his destructive actions that are transforming the planet. Man arrived on Madagascar only 1,500 years ago and has since destroyed almost all the original forest. Already 1/5 of all known lemur species have gone extinct since then.
The degradation of the environment in Madagascar can be caused by different reasons, but I would say poverty could be one of the main reasons.
Jonah Ratsimbazafi is a primatologist at the Durrell Wildlife Conservation Trust, a non-governmental conservation organization. He has dedicated his life to saving Madagascar's endangered species from extinction and educates others on the importance of doing so.
Many of the Malagasy wildlife live in the forest. No forest, no biodiversity. And it's very scary. If the speed of current deforestation still continue within the next 25 years, there is no forest left in Madagascar. So that's what I said.
Yes.
This is an international concern. It's a world concern, not only for the Malagasy, but this is a world concern for all scientists, for all conservationists.
Although there are a greater number of species in general in mainland Africa than on Madagascar, the island holds more endemic species. One of the hurdles to overcoming conserving these endangered species is convincing the people of Madagascar, the Malagasy, that deforestation is not the way to prosperity.
80% of the people are farmers, and people need lands for their farm, for cultivation. And the case, for example, in Lacalotes, people want to convert the marsh into rice field, so people need more lands for their cultivation. And people also need lands for raising cattle and getting woods. So there are different reasons, but I would say the dependence on the natural resources are still very high in Madagascar.
Here in the crowded capital of Antananarivo, rice and other supplies are in high demand as the population grows. Conservation International reports the estimated population of 17 million is anticipated to double by 2025. That is why Durrell works with the local community to conserve the remaining species.
If there are no lemurs left, tourists won't come to visit Madagascar, and we won't get money from tourism. Tourism is a way of improving the local community livelihood.
People from all over the world come to see lemurs in their only natural habitat here on Madagascar. Lemurs are our last living link to the lineage of primates that broke off from apes and humans. Mouse lemurs are the smallest of the lemur family and include 16 different known species, 12 of which were described since 2000. These lovable creatures are nocturnal and feed on insects, fruits, and nectar. Their agility helps them to evade predators such as the mongoose or fusa, the largest predator, which prefers dining on larger prey, such as brown lemurs or shifakas. The cockerel shifaka can be considered as one of the most charming species of lemur. Often hanging out in groups, they forage for most of the day on leaves and buds. Their range is restricted to the northwest region of Madagascar, and many can be found in Ankarafantsika National Park. On the eastern side of the island lives the largest of the living lemur species, the indri. These loud, leaping primates can weigh up to 22 pounds and live in groups, foraging throughout the day. Their call is one of territorial matters and is one of the loudest calls in the animal kingdom, reaching over a mile across the forest. One thing all of these lemurs share in common:
habitat loss is one of the major problems for all lemurs. But there are 100 species and subspecies of lemurs, and 4 of them are on the verge of extinction. The white-colored brown lemur, the greater bamboo lemur, and the silky lemurs, and the sportive Samalasis lemurs. Those 4 are on the brink of extinction. Why? Because hunting and habitat loss. There are not that many left.
The International Union for Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources recently reported that 1 in 4 mammals in the world are endangered of being lost forever because of habitat loss, hunting, and climate change. In Madagascar alone, 355 animal and 281 plant species are threatened with extinction. The plowshare tortoise is one of the most endangered creatures, with only about 600 individuals left because of the exotic pet trade. Durrell hosts a captive breeding facility for these and other turtles on the brink of extinction, and educates young students on the importance of conserving these rare species. There's still a great deal we do not know about the island's biodiversity. New species are still being discovered. Most endangered animals are already living in fragmented forests, which make it difficult to move between patches of forest. In the long term, this contributes to loss of genetic diversity. Fortunately, there are many conservation organizations like Durrell working to prevent the degradation of habitat.
To prevent this degradation, during these few years, there have been many conservation organizations have been created, and the government on their sides. The president of Madagascar, for example, he made a bold announcement by increasing the size of protected area from 1.7 million hectares to 6 million hectares within 5 years, and this is the last year. I would say conservation is a collective task which demands the involvement of all of us. Otherwise, everything, those unique and biodiversity of Madagascar will be gone soon.
Conservation International is one of these organizations working to prevent that from happening in what it considers to be a major biodiversity hotspot.
So when we talk about species extinction, it's hard to know, although it is said that losing, a hectare of forest in Madagascar is more detrimental in terms of species extinction than anywhere else in the world.
Daniela Rake is an American working for Conservation International in Madagascar for 10 years. CI supports research when the government cannot provide it and creates new protected areas.
But in terms of the political will, the opportunity to create new protected areas lies squarely on the shoulders of the Malagasy government, and actually the president himself, Mark Ravalomanana, can claim responsibility for providing that opportunity. So if he himself hadn't publicly stated that was his vision and publicly committed to making that vision a reality, it really wouldn't have happened, or it wouldn't be happening now.
And that just happened a little while ago.
In 2003,
Yeah.
he made that statement and made that commitment.
Yeah.
And since then, we've created nearly 3 million hectares of new protected areas. So, we're moving, but we're not there yet.
Not all conservation organizations are as large as Durrell or Conservation International. There are grassroots efforts that are protecting habitats and conserving species.
So Mitsinju is a local Malagasy NGO that evolved out of a community project. That means that all the members are actually villagers from Andasibe village.
Rainer Dolch is a German expatriate and has been living in Madagascar for 16 years. He and Peace Corps volunteer Jonathan Feely's work incorporates conservation, ecotourism, agriculture, and health into Mitsinju's projects. Mitsinju manages areas that are not protected by the government through ANGAP, the National Association for the Management of Protected Areas in Madagascar. Dolch and Feely work closely with the locals in protecting their forests.
So you have to limit the local communities encroaching upon the natural habitats, but you cannot just do that, but you have to provide alternatives for them to earn their living in a more sustainable way. People are aware that slash and burn agriculture is essentially a bad thing that in the long run will deprive them of their livelihoods. So people are willing to to tackle new ways of earning a living, and that's why the first reception by the local population to that project was a very positive one.
Mitsinju now faces the challenge of convincing locals to stay with the project and focus on long-term benefits, as some no longer see it as beneficial to them. That's where the role of education becomes so important to the future of Madagascar.
We need to educate our children, because conservation is always difficult when people get little access to food, little access to health care, or little access to education.
Ultimately, when we look at the conservation of species and we look at the people living in this land, that ultimately will decide upon that fate, the fate of the species around them, the fate of the forest, the habitat, and valuing that, it all boils down to education. That's really what this country needs. It needs more inspiring Malagasy leaders of an environmental message. And the only way you're going to do that is to really focus hard on the APP, the equivalency of elementary school and on up, and make teaching be a truly prestigious role in a community, and well paid, and those kids be well fed and have the correct materials.
Mitsinju provides school children from all over the country with educational programs and tours in the forest, because many children live far from protected areas and don't know about the types of wildlife that exist in their country. Then there are those who live on the outskirts of protected areas and are very aware of the wildlife and conservation problems afflicting their country. Brice Randriambololansa lives in one of the most visited parks in Madagascar, Ndasi Bay Mantadia.
Wildlife is very important for me and for my people here, because my village here have a national park and have many species of lemuri, and the biggest lemuri in Madagascar, Indri. And we must know the wildlife, I like wildlife, for protection, environment.
At 22 years old, Brice is in a good position for obtaining a good job. He studied English to become an interpreter for all tourists that come through the park. He wants to get a job as a tour guide with ANGAP, but explains that there are no positions open this year, and so he will have to find a job elsewhere.
Many persons of my village in Ndasi Bay don't have an org. And if to find a org, it's possible to make a development for my village or for my country. Yes. Every family have a life normally and can eat normally. We can study normally at school.
So he is waiting to hear if he got the job with Dynatech, a mining company which has begun one of the largest nickel-cobalt mining projects ever in the region east of the capital, Antananarivo.
The Dynatech is look for nickel and cobalt. It is a big project in Africa, and my country accepts this project in Muramanga. So it is for the future might be very bad for future, because big place to cut down for the trees, and every species for lemur died, and every species damaged. Might be bad for the future. Good for economy, bad for environment for the future.
Mitsinju is aware of the project and considers mining activities a threat to wildlife.
Threats from mining, because this area is very rich in various mineral resources, so there is mines encroaching on the natural habitats from various sites.
Ecotourism is one way to increase wealth for the Malagasy people more sustainably than mining or logging. Though it too has impacts to the environment, such as the need to clear land for lodges and hot water piping, if managed correctly, ecotourism can be a way of improving quality of life.
I definitely think that Madagascar could attract American tourists, that there are Americans who would be interested in coming to Madagascar and who would come to Madagascar. And I think that it can contribute to the economy if it's done properly.
Ecotourism could be good and one source of increasing income of the community or the country. If ecotourism is, if there is no rule and regulation, if there is no really good structure, it can be disaster.
In order to achieve a more sustainable use of the natural resources on which it depends, have to generate money from these natural resources. And so ecotourism, of course, can be a big asset in generating money. And
in Nosy Be, we live with the tourism. If no tourism in Nosy Be, that we have the problem of the big problem for the money. Because every people to live in Nosy Be live with the tourism. Working in the hotels, working to make guides, driver of the taxi, and guide marines to catching the fish in Miami.
Abel Tangatsara is a tour guide for Nosy Bay. The government protects it and surrounding islands like Nosy Tanakeli. These islands are popular vacation destinations for Europeans. Tourism is supporting these communities that would otherwise have little but fishing to rely on for income.
This 100, the tourists to pay the 100 to helping to paying the teacher in this village. The teacher, because in this village have the one school, the primary school, and the government not pay the teacher in this village, and the someone to live in this village to pay the teacher with this 100 in the reservoir Luku Bay.
There are consequences to heavy tourism here, such as coral destruction from snorkeling and water pollution from speedboats. The oceans surrounding Madagascar are already undergoing extreme overfishing due to uncontrolled industrial fishing practices.
If you fishing every month, every day, after nothing, and you must to protect him.
It seems incredible odds that the remaining unique wildlife and fragile ecosystems of Madagascar could survive in the long run. The poverty here is some of the worst in the world, and development will surely help the Malagasy out of it. And yet, preserving what remains of the environment is in the country's best long-term interest. So what can be said of the future of this island at a crossroads?
I believe that if you continue to work very close together, we can make the difference. I believe that.
Yeah.
And this, once again, it's a long process, it's a long campaign. We have a saying, all cows cannot awake at the same time. There are some people aware of the problem. Somebody else may be tomorrow, but the thing is, all you have to do is to teach, to educate, to work continuously with the people.
I think that conservation can go hand in hand with development, but I definitely feel like conservation cannot happen without development. I mean, conservation cannot happen without people. It is people. We cannot expect those that are the poorest to bear the burden of conservation because the world has placed a value on Malagasy forests. I mean, it's not just.
Well, we can be slightly optimistic, not overly optimistic, but there is still hope.
If you're giving money to organizations to support development overseas and to support conservation overseas, I mean, make a assessment of who you're giving money to and looking at their programs, because you know, education and such grassroots initiatives like this, in my opinion, hold the most promise.
Is that losing some of these species and the habitats is really, it's a manifestation of losing local culture and tradition. I mean, the species and the habitats around where people live are embedded in their cultures, embedded in their histories, embedded in their identity.
If man is part of the problem, they should be part of the solution.
The protection, the first thing we do now, because it is for the future, around for my village's green color, and it's very important for the life here. We have a nice life. We are rich for nature, for the trees, every species of bird, every species of lemur.
It is hard to imagine that such an enchanting island as Madagascar could lose the very things that make it enchanting forever. The loss of biodiversity here can be seen as a reminder for the rest of the world to keep vigilant over other ecosystems to ensure our global survival.